In a recent YouTube video, now that the UK tax year has started, I went through the best stocks and shares ISA platform to use for the coming tax year for 2022-2023. I went through a number of platforms, a list of their pros and cons, and then announced in that video that I'm going to be sticking with Vanguard for my stocks and shares ISA for this coming tax year. Because of that, I thought it'd be useful to make a more in-detailed video of why I have used Vanguard for a number of years already and why I'm going to carry on using them for this coming tax year, going through a list of pros and cons, being transparent as possible on what I like and don't like about the platform. I'm not affiliated with Vanguard in any way. This isn't a sponsored video. I've got nothing to gain from talking through the pros and cons, which is why I'm going to be transparent about them. But I have used them for 3.5 years and I'm going to use them for the tax year going forward. The way I'm going to set up this video then is to essentially go through a pro, give an associated con, and then I've also then got a list of other more smaller pros and cons that I'm going to go through at the end. To get straight into it then, number one is fees. Vanguard are a very low fee platform. They only charge 0.15% as an annual platform charge. But what I like more than the actual low fee is that the fees are very transparent. If you just Google Vanguard full costs and charges, you can see exactly what fees you're going to pay depending on what funds you're investing into. On other platforms, it can be a bit of a minefield on what fees you're going to pay, FX fees, reinvestment fees, trade dealing fees. It can be a minefield to work it out. With Vanguard, it's very easy and transparent to know exactly how much you're going to pay.
You like that? You like that?
There are no fees for transferring in and out, no fees for buying or selling funds, no fees for regular automatic investments, which is what I do every single month and have now for over 3.5 years. However, with fees, there are platforms that offer lower fees. Two that come to mind are Trading212 and Invest Engine. Both of these platforms are 0% fee platforms, which is obviously lower than Vanguard's 0.15%. Also on fees, it's worth noting that because Vanguard are a percentage-based broker, they charge 0.15%. Flat fee brokers, which charge a flat fee per month or per year, become cheaper as your investment pot grows. So whilst Vanguard may be cheaper compared to say Freetrade, if you have £5,000 invested, if you had £500,000 invested, Freetrade would be a lot cheaper. And that is the full picture when it comes to Vanguard's fees. But personally, I don't mind paying a slightly higher fee for Vanguard for some of the other pros that we're going to come on to shortly. The second thing to look into is funds. So we've gone through fees, and number two is funds. And Vanguard have a great range of funds. They've got a lot of ready-made, off-the-shelf, put it straight in the oven funds that you can just click invest and it's all done for you. The ones that come to mind here are the life strategy funds and the target date retirement funds, which are both popular choices for people that use Vanguard. They also offer DIY options as well, where you can hand select funds you want to invest into. There's 79 in total. You can choose which ones you want and then also invest into those. So there's both DIY options and more ready-made off-the-shelf versions and funds, so you can sort of use it to suit your needs and how you want to invest. As I mentioned, there's 79 funds in total, which is a decent range. And for me specifically, personally, I only invest into the FTSE Global All Cap in my Vanguard Stocks and Shares ISA. That fund is an index fund and it's not available on that many platforms in the UK. So the fact that Vanguard have that fund is one big pro for me on why I use them. But now,
Wait!
with funds, there's also cons. The first one that comes to mind is, as I mentioned, the number of funds. 79 is a lot of funds. However, a lot of other platforms have larger ranges available. Invest Engine have 500 plus funds available. Trading212, Freetrade also both have an absolute ton of funds that you can invest into. So if you're just looking for number of options available, Vanguard doesn't have the most. The second con on funds is that Vanguard only offer Vanguard funds. On other platforms, say Trading212, you can invest into HSBC funds, iShare funds, and Vanguard funds, and so on. With Vanguard on their platform, you can only invest into Vanguard funds and not other companies' funds. Now, once again, for me personally, across all the different accounts that I invest into, I only use Vanguard funds. So in Freetrade, Trading212, I only have Vanguard funds anyway. But I know that some people obviously may want to invest into other companies' funds if they may be a slightly lower fee or they just prefer other companies. The third drawback when it comes to funds is that Vanguard don't even offer some of their own Vanguard funds on their platform. Two that come to mind are VUAG, which is the accumulating version of the S&P 500, and VWRP, which is the accumulating version of the FTSE All World. Both of these funds are available on other platforms like Free Trade and Trading 212, but they're not available on Vanguard's platform, which can be a bit annoying because if you want to invest into the S&P 500, for example, you have to use the VUSA, which is an income fund, not an accumulation fund, so then your dividends get paid out as cash rather than being automatically reinvested. And I understand that can be an issue for people who want to have all of their dividends automatically reinvested. I know for me, I use the FTSE Global All Cap accumulation because I want all of my dividends to be automatically reinvested back into the fund. The third one, which comes across as both pro and con, is app. Vanguard do not have an app. Most platforms, I think pretty much every platform nowadays has an app. A lot of platforms actually have no website and just an app. With Vanguard, there is only a website and no app. You can't download any app on the Google Play Store or your App Store, whatever phone you have. There is no app in the UK, unfortunately. I think they are testing an app and there's meant to be one called Vanguard Beacon coming out at some point, but there's nothing as of yet. For me, I think this is a pro because as a long-term passive investor, I want to check my investments as little as possible. I know that, however, some people do like checking their investments, like just being able to go on their phones, refreshing it, see how much they've got. So depending on what way you sort of sway with this one, it could be a pro, it could be a con. Number 4 is accounts. Vanguard offer a range of accounts. They have a stocks and shares ISA, a private pension, a junior ISA, and a general investment account. So they pretty much cover the 3 big bases of ISAs, pensions, and general investment accounts. So you almost could have all of your accounts on this one platform.
You can stop at 5 or 6 stores or just one.
The downside though when it comes to accounts and the con is that they don't offer a lifetime ISA. This is in comparison to Hargreaves Lansdown, who offer all of those accounts I just mentioned and a lifetime ISA. If you want to have all of your accounts on one platform and you want to have a lifetime ISA, you can't do that with Vanguard because they don't offer one. The 5th thing now is the interface. There's no app, but they do have a website. And I actually really like how the website is. If you go onto your account, into your investments, you can see your investments. It shows your split. Even though I've only got one fund, it shows your split between different funds. It shows your cost, your equity. If you then click into the fund, it then shows a graph of where you've been sort of buying over time. So I think that's actually quite cool. Although generally speaking, as it is a website, it is a bit clunkier than using an app. Free Trade, for example, have a really good interface, and I would probably say as a con, there are better interfaces out there, and Free Trade is the one that comes to mind. With Free Trade, it's easy to see your investments, your watch list, how your money is split between stocks, bonds, cash, and so on. Now, there are the 5 things where I think there's both pros and cons. I'm now gonna go through a few more pros, rattle through them, and then a few more cons, and then give a quick summary overall of what I think of the platform and why I still use it. So, another pro, number 1, is that their customer service, in my experience, is good. I've not used it a huge amount, but whenever I need to speak to them, you can send them a message through their website, and they usually get back to you within a day or 2. I appreciate it's not urgent, like with some platforms, they can get back to you in minutes, so it may not be as good as other platforms in terms of speed, but the actual quality of the customer service, in my experience, has been good. Number 2 is their structure. Vanguard are different to pretty much every other investing platform because the company Vanguard is owned by its funds, and the funds are then owned by us who invest into them. This is different to pretty much every other investment company, BlackRock, Fidelity, HSBC, where they're trying to cut costs, make profits, trying to appease their shareholders and to get their stock price to go up. With Vanguard, the reason why they can really offer such low fees and have done for years is because there's never been any sort of shareholder pressure or board to please. It's essentially owned by us, the investors, which is different to other companies who are listed, trying to make profits, and so on. And the third extra pro I'm gonna put here is affinity. Jack Bogle is the founder of Vanguard. He created the world's first index fund in 1975, and as Warren Buffett says, he has done more for the average investor than any person ever in investing history. And I think the fact that he founded Vanguard and then created the index fund means that normal people like me and you have been able now to decades to invest at very low fees, whereas before that it was always very much a rich person's game. You could only invest if you had access to opportunities, access to money. Now you can get started with a very small amount of money, and that is essentially due to Vanguard bringing down fees decades ago.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Now let's go through some more of the cons when it comes to Vanguard's platform. Number 1 is that there's higher minimums than other platforms. So to get invested with a fund, you need to have a £500 lump sum investment or a £100 regular automatic investment. You need one of those to get started. This is in comparison to other platforms as already mentioned, free trade, trading 212, and so on, where you can get started from just a few pounds. A second extra con here is that ETFs or live dealing actually costs money. If you invest at the next trading point in the next day, it's free. But if you want to live invest, it costs £7.50 per trade. Once again, this is very expensive. And if you are going to be live buying and selling ETFs, you don't want to do it on Vanguard's platform because it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's better to do it at one of the zero commission brokers. Of course, if you're not going to be, live buying and selling ETFs, then this is essentially irrelevant. But if trading is something you want to do, then Vanguard is not good for that. Another thing, which I probably should have mentioned earlier on in the video, which I sort of did, but not in this way, because Vanguard only offer Vanguard funds, there are no individual stocks, no individual shares, no REITs, nothing like that. It's just Vanguard funds. If you want to invest into individual stocks and shares, then Vanguard is not the platform for you because they don't offer it. I always say when it comes to choosing the platform, start with the end in mind, think about what you want to invest into, and then work back to see what the best platform is for you. If you want to invest into Tesla, Apple, Facebook directly, then you can't do that with Vanguard. You would need to use Trading 212, Stake, eToro, another one of those platforms. And a third con here, also on ETFs, is that through Vanguard, you can only buy ETFs in their full units. Other platforms do offer fractional shares. If an ETF is £50 and you only have £25, you can buy half a unit of that ETF. With Vanguard, you can't do that. You can only buy ETFs in full units. Index funds, because I made a video on index funds versus ETFs, but index funds are a different type of investment vehicle and you can buy fractional shares with index funds. That's what I do with the FTSE Global All Cap. But with ETFs, you cannot buy fractional shares. You have to buy full units, and that can be frustrating. So it's quite a lot of pros there. Quite a lot of the pros also have some con to them. There's also quite a lot of cons, which can be pros, but that is essentially my full list of pros and cons when it comes to Vanguard. Ultimately, the reason why I use them is personally, they are low fee and I really do like how transparent their fee structure is. This is different to a lot of other investment platforms where it's very difficult to work out what fees you're paying. Secondly, for me personally, because I only use the FTSE Global All Cap, that investment isn't available on that many platforms. There are alternatives like the FTSE All World, HSBC also have an all world fund, but I personally like this fund because it's as globally diversified as you can be, and that's another big pro for me on why I use Vanguard. They're also one of the largest asset managers in the world, so it gives you that peace of mind being able to sleep at night knowing my money is with an established huge multi-trillion investment platform who has been around for decades and not a newer startup that has only been around for a few months or years and could potentially go bust at some point. For me personally, all of the cons aren't really cons. I've already mentioned I don't mind paying a slightly higher fee. I don't really want other funds available or individual stocks because I only use the FTSE Global All Cap. I'm not fussed about an app. I think the interface is quite good. I don't buy and sell ETFs, so I don't incur any of those fees. So a lot of the cons for me personally aren't cons because I don't almost need those things in the platform. For you though, these cons might be massive cons and they might be deal breakers, and if that is the case, the great thing is in the UK there are loads and loads of different investment platforms. I'd recommend watching my best stocks and shares ISA video, which I'll link in the description, and that goes through a lot of pros and cons of different platforms. But if these cons are deal breakers, then I'd say shop around and see which other platform is the best for you. But yeah, let me know in the comments what platform you use. But for me, I will carry on using Vanguard for this next tax year, and then once again at the end of the tax year evaluate whether I will still use Vanguard going forward, but I've got a feeling that I probably will. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.